this is your boy Dre. You're going to be watching a video that was filmed, possibly, and or recorded for older channels of mine. So this is the Dre of the future telling you that the Dre of the past to enjoy the video. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It's different. A lot of y'all wanted some of my older school content, and since I'm going through the hard drive, finding some good gems for you guys to enjoy. All right, stay geeky, y'all. Peace. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Nerd Dungeon. This is Dre the Geek Dad. And for those of you that do not know, I am a school teacher as my kind of real world job, and I've taught history for a long time, over a decade. And for those of you that don't know, I'm a geek dad that has a baby watching Sesame Street in the background, so I apologize in advance. But let me continue. I've been a geek for, I would like to say, my whole life, but at least in my adult life I've gotten into anime and manga. And I was talking with the Click guys and JC, and I said, you know, as a comic book fan, I've noticed manga has definitely grown here in the United States, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. So this is a presentation for you for a little bit of background knowledge on what is manga, if you didn't know, and how popular it's become here in the States. So enjoy the slideshow. Now, this is what is manga. Now, obviously, if you know anything about manga, it is a form of comics or graphic novels that are out of Japan. Now, a lot of people do not know that there are comic books that are from Korea called manhwa, and there is Chinese manga. I have never been able to read Chinese manga or manhwa. Now they're called webtoons in Korea, so we're getting a lot of those over here in the US, and they're pretty good actually. But as an overarching term, manga is, just like it says here, an umbrella term. So it kind of covers everything in the umbrella as far as comic books go, and really what we call graphic novels. These are collected editions that are weekly, and as you can see here, you see probably 4 of the most popular characters. You see Deku, Goku, Naruto, and I know he's a little off camera, but I'll bring him into focus. You see Naruto and, of course, Luffy from One Piece. Now, these are just 4 of the current titles that are produced by Shonen Jump, which is one of the largest and popular American companies here, under Viz, and they produce some great books. Now, obviously, people, and I feel like there's always like this kind of odd thing to not knowing that there's, similar to American comic books, Japanese comic books fall into a very same kind of classification series. I think it's a little bit more organized in Japanese comics versus American comic books, or I say Japanese manga. So obviously there's shonen comics. Now shonen comics are geared more towards men or boys. And these are titles that you would look at, something like Dr. Stone, Berserk, Black Clover. Those are usually the titles you would expect. Dragon Ball Z, Bleach. And then there's shoujo manga, which are geared towards young women or girls. And shoujo manga would be very similar to what you see here. Utena. I would even go as far as saying, obviously, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, most of the Clamp series of stuff, like Tsubasa Chronicle. Obviously, I've read a lot, and I do have some shoujo I like, and there are some, like Utena is one of my favorites, and I would definitely say Sailor Moon definitely qualifies as that. But I've read Kamikaze Kaito-Jan, which was really good anime and a very good shoujo series that was done in the mid-90s. But I digress. This is where they gear for girls. Now, do men and women dabble in both series? Of course they do. You don't have to be a guy to just like guy manga, and you don't have to be a girl to like girl manga. It's just a classification. Now there's obviously yaoi. Now I listed this here because this is where it's not necessarily, I don't want to say homoerotica, but I guess that would be the correct term to use. It's more like there's two male characters, and they are like ships passing in the night, so to speak. There might be a hinted love, but it's nothing deep. You see a lot of this in shoujo manga, but yaoi is a type of manga that even there are some shonen titles. What was it? Sayuki, which is based on Journey to the West, which is very shonen, has a lot of yaoi kind of connotations. There was Yami no Matsue, Descendants into Darkness, I think it was the correct English translation for it, and that was very yaoi as well. Again, it's not, for people that are into it, it's not like Gravitation, where there's like a rock and roll element, where there's like a guy dressed as a girl, and there's a guy that likes the girl that dresses as the guy that dresses like a girl. It's not like that. It's things that you can understand, and it does have, like I said, there are deeper themes, but that's the overarching one. Then there's obviously Yuri, which is female-female. Now there's usually a female protagonist and maybe a female antagonist, and you'll see the two female characters, leads, have some sort of hinted at romance. Now, I have never read any real Yuri manga. I do know there are some elements in Shoujo Kakome Utena, or Utena for the American audience that's listening to this. Utena has definitely Ansi, which is the character listed. You see her there, the dark-skinned character, and then Utena, the pink-haired girl. They have a kind of an unseen bond, a love for each other. Obviously, if you've seen Sailor Moon, there's definitely between Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune. They have, the Americans called it cousins. Obviously, they are, romantically inclined to be with each other. Then there is hentai. Now, I did not want to say XXX, but understand it is explicit manga. Hentai, much like everything, has a subgenre. There are genres within genres of hentai. I will not lie and say I've never read any. I have. The one most popular that most older anime fans agree that is probably one of the best hentai ever is the... Of course my daughter chimes in when I'm talking about XXX. It's hysterical. The most popular one would be Overfiend. And that was in the late 80s, early 90s. It was an anime. I never read the manga, but it was an explicit anime. I definitely did not know what I was getting into when I was watching it. But it was not a, strictly just pornographic style anime. It was actually quite interesting. There was a lot of cool elements to it. But again, I digress. If you haven't, you can Google each of these, and there are titles listed for each one. And like I listed at the bottom, there are subcategories within each one. There's the magical girl under shoujo, there's horror, sci-fi, superhero, you name it, there is a type. Now, here's where, as a historian, I follow statistics. And I have to follow statistics, because this is what we base things on as a historian. So this is the top 10 grossing manga here in the US, and this is from 2017. It was courtesy of a BookScan website that I found. Obviously the top is 1.5 million, then it's 1 million, then 500,000, and then nothing. Now Tomie, if you don't know, the dark blue, that is Junji Ito, and that's horror. The Legend of Zelda, that is considered and sold under children's manga, or children's comics here in the US. Tokyo Ghoul, Volume 1, I would consider that adult-ish manga, but not explicit. Uzumaki is another Junji Ito manga, and that's horror manga. The Legend of Zelda series, I think all three of those books are listed, and you can buy them in Barnes & Noble in the children's section. They're not in the regular manga section. Pokemon Adventures, I think, falls in that as well. Death Note. Now, probably one of the most popular of them all, and you can see as it's yellow, it breaks the $500,000 mark and gets a little above, maybe about 600,000. The red, obviously being Pokemon Adventures Red and Blue box set, that one is a lighter red, and that one has broken close to 750,000. And the one that broke them all would be the lighter blue Akira 35th anniversary box set of the manga, and that clears easily almost $1.4 million. Now that's a lot of money in 2017, but again, there are several manga titles, but these are the top 10 aggregated. Okay, so again, I like looking at statistics. Now, this was something a little bit more recent, and this is actually from a group that goes out and goes to retailers and helps them do their statistics, called the MPD group. They looked at manga sales growth between 2019 and 2020. Now, obviously, we can't do 2021 yet because we're only through we're in the middle of the year, technically. So we have to wait till December when they can look at aggregating, or probably February of next year where they can aggregate all their data and look at it. Now, in 2019, it shows that there was a 26% increase in sales growth. That's looking at online retailers, comic book conventions, anime conventions, bookstores like Books A Million, FYE, Barnes & Noble, carrying a larger supply of manga. Now, in 2020, obviously due to the COOF, we see it almost jumped to 50%. It's at 44%. This is an obvious statistical growth because of people staying home. We know as of March 13th on 2020 last year that when the COOF settled in and we were all homebound, a lot of people went to online resellers and bought manga. They did in-store curbside with like Barnes & Noble, FYE, and they were buying up large volumes of manga. And this also, I think, calculates online sales through the Viz app, which does a monthly subscription for $2.99 unlimited. So these are just statistical growth that you can see from one year to the next. You see what is that, an 18% growth from 2019 to 2020. That's a big deal when you look at those statistics. Now, the obvious thing I was talking with the Click guys about. Should Marvel and DC fear the growth of manga sales? I say both yes and no. And I'm going to pick this first, and then I'll explain why. Quora.com is something that you could see on the iPhone, and you could go to their website. And it had some great articles that listed several reasons why there are increased sales in Marvel, DC, and other studios, and manga over those other studios. Now, for obvious reasons, one of them was like that they're adapting the style, their stories are incomplete, hiatuses in Marvel or DC, obviously we factor in the COOF into this, we factor in just certain companies ending book series, or artists that don't complete this and they work on other projects. So that's what his opinion was. But you can go to Quora.com and type in the Marvel and DC versus manga, and you'll see some great articles written by some pretty interesting people. Again, they're mostly fan-based, so take it with a grain of salt. But why do I say yes? In recent years, obviously, if you just look at the basic statistics, you see that there's a growth of literally 18% from year to year. And that's just a small growth. In the year where we were all home, it grew even more, to the point that this is something wildly popular. My 11-year-old, she is not, and she was never interested in manga, will read the comic books and loves Black Widow, loves Captain Marvel. But recently, because of girls at her school, she got into manga and likes My Hero Academia, which I love My Hero Academia. So she got interested and wants to read My Hero Academia. Now, that to me doesn't mean she's not going to stop wanting to read Black Widow and Miss Marvel, but it's something interesting to add to her flavor palette, so to speak. that's where you could say the no. I think that a lot of adult fans that are interested will still cater into both libraries. I mean, like I said, I have 3 children. I know 2 of them read manga religiously, and well, one of them reads it religiously, and the 11-year-old, she just got into it, and when my 1-year-old decides to get a little bit older, she'll probably read it too because I read it to her when I'm reading a book. Now, I chose an obvious image of Spider-Man written and done in a manga style. It's actually from a Japanese translation of a manga with Spider-Man in it. I think it's the Marvel Zombies that they had done, and that had a lot of manga influence in it as well. The overarching kind of decision I would say for you to come to in this is, it really is your choice. I think I read a lot of manga. I read a lot of good manga, and the thing is, I feel it's good. I read My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen. I read Cells at Work, Chainsaw Man. Now, mind you, some of these are actually quite popular titles and are being actively read and sought out in bookstores. But if you're looking for something a little bit more eclectic, maybe Goblin Slayer or Solo Leveling, which is a Korean manhwa, I mean, these are options where they're different than an American comic book, and you're getting more meat. 48 pages for $5, where you have to wait a month till the next issue, versus 230 pages, 10 or 15 chapters, and you're getting a lot of story driven to wait for maybe the next translation to come out. So, and you're paying double the price. So there is a payoff in it for some fans, and there isn't. Again, the ultimate decision is yours. Now, do I find this interesting? Yes. I'm not going to keep rambling on. If you guys want to, please comment down below if you like this sorts of thing, because I love doing slideshows. If you couldn't tell, being a teacher, this is something I do. And as always, watch your head on the way out of the Nerd Dungeon, folks. This is Dre the Geek Dad. Peace.